All right, so now that we're in Fusion, the next step is to bring our mesh references in. So I'm going to go to Import Mesh, and we are going to go ahead and find the location. So it's going to be in Projects, and that's going to be our Starion Marker Light installed. This should be all 4 meshes. Actually, sorry, there we go. Starion Bumper Meshes for Intake. You think you make all the file names unique enough, and then, of course, it's kind of still a pain to find them. This is going to be a little bit heavy on Fusion because I didn't do any processing or trying to reduce the number of triangles or anything like that. Definitely important to think about for most designs. Now, one thing that you can see here is with this process, it brought in everything. So all 4 of those meshes together came in as one. In order to bring them in as individual meshes, what we need to do in Quick Surface is export them individually. So for example, let's go ahead and hide all these other ones. When we do an export in Quick Surface, if we go to this QS menu, let's go ahead and make it full screen. It's only going to take anything that's visible. So if we right click on this, we can export one individually, but when we go through the process of doing this from the QS menu, anything that's visible is going to come through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this, let's see, Starion, let's call this one Starion Intake Bumper Empty. And I'm going to go ahead and just put an 01 on it. Kind of helps me remember. And we'll do this one here, export 02, Starion Intake Bezel. And I don't really need the light, but I might not need the light. I don't know, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyways. So Starion, actually that's going to be 03, Starion Intake Light. So now we've got the original one, and we've got the bumper without anything installed. We've got the light, and then we've got the bezel. I'm going to go ahead, just for good measure, I'm going to go ahead and export this. 04 Starion Intake Bumper installed. All right, so now that we got all those, we'll just do a quick save here. Come back into Fusion. And again, part of the reason here is if you take a look at the properties of this, so let's go to Properties. You can even see how long it's taking to load the properties. So essentially what happens is it's taking all of the meshes, so almost 6 million triangles here. So it's really going to drag the system down to do that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to close that out. Go to Mesh, Insert, and then now we've got numbers on it. So we're going to do Bumper Empty. We're going to say OK. And this should be aligned to our coordinate system. So you can see from the front, from the side, that all looks pretty good. So the first thing I want to do is go into Bodies, right click, make it unselectable. That will make it run quite a bit faster on its own. And then we'll go to Insert Another Mesh. So now we're going to take 02, the bezel. That should come in the exact right spot because we aligned everything inside of relative to the coordinate system inside of Quick Surface. So that should just be where it wants to be. We're going to say OK. Do the same thing here, right click and make it unselectable. So again, it runs a bit faster. And again, if we right click and we look at the properties, even though we're making it unselectable, if it's a large mesh, it will take a good bit of time. Looks like it's about 2 million triangles just for that bezel. That's overkill by quite a bit. But again, we didn't remesh anything in Quick Surface. We certainly could. We're going to go 03, the light. Again, not really sure how much we need from the light. We could hack out most of the mesh, and then we could just use just the mounting portions on the light, make that unselectable. And just for good measure, I'm going to go ahead and bring in the bumper 04. The bumper with everything installed should still be in the same location. And we'll say OK. This one here, again, unselectable. So we'll hide that. And if I do Control 4 to hide the edges, we can kind of see what we're working with. So now we've got the bumper. We can toggle on and off the light. So we can just have the bezel where it goes. We can toggle on and off the bezel. So we've got the bumper, and we can continue to work with this. Because we don't need as much of this, and we've got a scan that contains all this sort of other data, we could begin to process these meshes here in Fusion to make them easier to work with. So for example, we could do a remesh on the intake bezel. We could go down to 0.25 on the density, preserve the sharp edges and boundaries, and say okay. So remember, that was about 2 million triangles. And all that we are really concerned with is going to be the divisions from where the turn signal or marker light would be and the driving light, and the two mounting hole locations. With a 3D print, we have a little bit of flexibility. Obviously, we can make a part, try it out, see if it fits, and make some adjustments from there. But we've captured the remesh, and if we take a look at the properties and see how many triangles we got down to, we went from about 2 million, it was 1,999,000, to 764,000. So quite a bit lighter on the mesh side of things. Looks like we still have enough detail for what we need. We've got the mounting hole locations. Some of the edges may be a bit rougher, but overall I think it looks okay. We could also do some smoothing and playing around with it. It's not worth it, honestly, to do this in Fusion. If you're going to do that and you have access to Quick Surface, that's the place that I would spend the time doing that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then if you want to follow along with the design portion, you can go to the description of the video and you can download it there. So now's the point where we get to the fun part. Obviously, scanning and dealing with the mesh and all that stuff, it can be fun, but honestly, it's just time consuming. It's only to get us to the point where we can start designing. So we're going to go and create a freeform model. We're going to have to look at our references. So we've got a bumper, the first one here with the opening in it. This one here, we are going to have 3 mounting points. So we've got a mounting point here, a mounting point here, and a mounting point here. If we want to extract that data, we should do it with something like a mesh section sketch, keeping in mind that these are not all on the same plane. So if we take a look at the light, for example, rotate this around, this mounting position here is further back in the Y direction than this one here. And then this one over here is on a different plane as well. So what I would say, especially with a 3D print, is I will likely come back later and address those. I am more concerned with where the bezel points are in space. So those are going to be, basically the areas where I'm going to start to create a mounting point. Right now, at this stage in the design, I am going to worry about that later, and I'm going to focus more on just the overall shape of everything. And the reason for that is because we can always trim back surfaces. We can combine surfaces and solids together. With a 3D print, it doesn't have to be consistent wall thickness, so we can have thicker and thinner areas if we need to. So as we look at this, basically we've got a small area here, small rectangular area, and we've got a larger rectangular area. This right here is just the plug for the light, and it's just on a loom that comes through here. In reality, what I was supposed to do is either pull the header panel off or pop the headlight up or remove the battery to reach down in there or come up from underneath. There are too many spider webs on this car for me to just blindly reach my hand up underneath and unhook that, but that's just what that is. It's kind of in the way here. So I guess the first step that I would say when we're trying to approach something like this is we can either start with a box, we can start with a cylinder, or we can start with a sketch. Now, if your end goal is to get this down to match up to an off-the-shelf size tube or piping or something like that, if you're not going to design 3D printed parts or use off-the-shelf parts all the way, then what I would say is determine what that transition looks like and figure out where you want those cylinders. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a cylinder. I'm just going to do this on the front plane. I'm going to put one here, And it looks to me like maybe about 60 millimeters is going to be as big as that can get. So 60 millimeter diameter. And, that's kind of sitting right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and copy it and paste it. And I'm going to put this one over here. It's a little hard to see because we don't have edges turned on. So Control and 6 will turn those edges on. And basically, it looks like 60 millimeters might fit okay there as well. But I would likely need to scale it down. If we rotate this around, you can kind of see that it might fit into that area, but it might not. So because I don't know exactly the size of that thing, what I'm going to do is delete that one, and I'm going to just create another cylinder. Again, on the same plane here. This one here, I'm going to say 50 millimeters. So that one, I've got plenty of room around it. So if we're trying to, again, make these things fit to an off-the-shelf size tube or duct or silicone hose or something like that, then we're going to start with something like this, a cylinder body. I'm going to go to Modify and Freeze. And I'm going to freeze the back edge on both of these. And what this does is it prevents those from changing. So if we have to make it fit a certain size and we don't have a sketch or a surface or a solid that we can use the Modify and Match tool to actually match it to, this is a good way to prevent us from resizing that. Then I'm going to take both of these bodies. We can do this with Move Copy, M on the keyboard, and we can pull them back and just kind of figure out where they can fit in the car. So as I look at this, we've got this metal plate here that would likely need to get cut out to make any of this work. It's already rusted and it's a potential problem. But for our 3D print, I can't really go back past there for now. So what I would say is just kind of look at the space we have available, and that looks like it's okay. All right, they still fit from the front. And we're going to say okay. So now we know where we're going to. We've got these cylinders. Oh, we can see that the frozen edges here caused a problem. What I'm going to do is select and go to Modify, Unfreeze, and we'll unfreeze that. And we'll go to Modify and Unfreeze that one as well. I'm just going to hit Select and Delete. Basically what happens is I just kind of folded it over on itself. And now we're going to go ahead and refreeze those again. So now they're kind of fixed in space. So we can make some adjustments and manipulate these as needed. The next thing is to determine whether or not we want to modify this shape, this cylinder that we created, or if we want to start with a new shape that's closer to the bezel. Now, the determination here depends a little bit on your skill and your comfort with the form tools and how much time you want to spend with this. What I would say is this might be a good opportunity to create a form shape with a sketch. So what I'm going to do is create a sketch. I'm just going to use the front plane again because I'm just going to move everything forward. And I'm going to start with this small one, which will be the brake duct essentially. And I'm going to go from somewhere down here, kind of come up over. We're going to have to go behind here because they are going to have to screw together. So I'm just going to kind of come over here. And because it'll be behind the bezel, it doesn't have to be an arc or a spline or anything like that. So for right now, I'm just going to make it a straight line. And then we will finish the sketch, go to Create, Extrude, and we rotate this around. Let's go ahead and say 10 millimeters. That should be okay. And this is our starting shape. So now we can take this body and either use Move Copy or Edit Form and put it into place. So begin pulling it back, getting it in roughly the right location, knowing that this is not planar, but getting it in roughly the right location. And let's see, I want to get it to where the top, let's go ahead and hide the bumper. I want to get it to where the top is close to where it needs to be. Something like that. And then we'll say, okay. I'm going to leave the creases for now, the sharp corners, and deal with rounding them off later. It makes it a lot easier for us to make small adjustments. It's also easier if we go into box mode. So that's Alt and 1, display mode, box mode. We can do it here as well. So modify edit form. I'm going to make sure that I'm on the all or multi selection and just begin pulling the shape up kind of one edge at a time. And we'll pull this one forward as well. And you can pull more than just one edge at a time, but because this is such a low face count, it could be helpful to do it this way. And we'll bring this one forward. And we'll go to the side. So basically, again, we're going to have to deal with this mounting point at some time, but all I'm trying to do right now is make a shape that fits to the light or to the bezel for the light. So again, on the top, we'll come in here and we'll pull that one back a little bit. Now, anybody that is hoping for a shortcut for this kind of thing, I'm sorry, that doesn't really exist. If you want to design a part like this, it's likely going to take a bit of time. So you're just going to have to play around and get comfortable with forms. I'm going to pull this one back a little bit and just make small incremental changes. Now, there is certainly shortcuts that we can take when we're trying to make things. We can obviously go and we can make big, broad shapes very quickly. But once we get into the minute details, that's where we really have to spend a lot of time. The next step for me is I'm going to go into the crease uncrease tool, and I'm going to uncrease all the edges. It's not going to look very different right now until we go back into smooth display, which is Alt and 3. And you can start to see that with smooth display, it doesn't match very well. It looks like I need to uncrease this one as well. So uncrease. But if we go back and forth into box display, the box display still represents it. So what this tells me is that if I use tools like bevel, for example, and I take this edge here, what this is going to allow me to do is, oh, I don't know why it disappeared like that. What this is going to allow me to do is use tools like increasing the crown and inserting edges to pull that edge back up and have it be closer to the box display edge. So I'm going to do that again. We'll bevel. I'm going to pick this one down here. And we'll once again increase the crown. And then we'll say, okay, pulling that down closer. Remember that we really don't need to be precise, and that's kind of an odd thing when you're doing CAD design. You don't need to be super precise with the forms at this stage, because all we're trying to do right now is make shapes. And so I'll take that edge, do bevel one more time. And there we go. So this tells me that I could likely bring this shape in further inside of where that screw hole is. And the way to do that is I'm going to go back into box display and I'm going to rotate this slightly. And we can use tools like soft modification. And for example, if we select these faces, the points that are red are going to move with it. As they start to get pink and white, the pink points will move less than what we move this one. The white will move even less, and anything that's not colored will not move at all. So this tells me that as I start to manipulate this, really what I'm getting is a drastic change in this side and less of a change around here. What we can do is we can increase that. So for example, set the distance to 75, and then that means that these points are going to move more. And if we increase it even more, let's say 100, then what we're going to start to see is that the corner treatment that we've created, these rounded corners, are going to stay more true to its shape. I'm going to say OK, go back to my smooth display, and rotate this around. So you can kind of see what we're doing. We're gradually starting to build out a shape. It doesn't have to snap to or perfectly match this bezel. That's not the intent here. We're just trying to make a duct that starts larger than the opening of this bezel, and we can slowly transition it to that round shape. So all that really matters at this point is that it fits and it doesn't overlap. So you can see we're overlapping where that screw is, so we need to make some adjustments. One thing that we could theoretically do is we could make it on the inside of the bezel, but I think it would look better if it was behind it. So what this tells me that I want to do is I'm going to double click, shift double click, edit form, and I'm going to move the entire thing backwards and say okay. All right, so again, we're roughly the same shape. We can pull the bottom forward if we need to, but as we look at it from the front, if we bring back the circle, now essentially what we need to do is transition from this down to that. So I can hide the bezel and I can begin exploring other tools. What I will say is that because we've only got one edge on the front and one edge on the back, there's no extra divisions, this shape will quickly start to fall apart and get deformed as we begin adding more edges. I'm going to double click this first edge and delete it. And then I want to go to modify, insert edge. I'm going to double click here. Simple insertion mode is going to be fine in this case because this is essentially just a straight extrude front to back. It's not going to really be any different than if we use the exact insertion mode. So I'm going to say okay here. And the main goal there is to try not to deform it too much. I'm going to attempt to use the bridge tool. The bridge tool likely won't work here because of the number of edges that we've got on this shape and the number of edges that we have on this shape. You can see here, unable to bridge periodic to non-periodic. And when you see that, basically what that means is we have too many divisions on this shape and not enough on this one. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, about 16. And I think we've got, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So essentially what we need to do is double the number of divisions on here. And thankfully we can do that with subdivide. We want to use exact in this case because we don't want to change the shape. And we say okay, and it'll double the number here. So theoretically, the bridge tool will have a chance at working now. That's not to say that it will work, but it's a better chance than it had before. So it still says periodic to non-periodic. It really doesn't like that. So I'm going to hit cancel, and I'm going to begin doing it manually. So it's never a great day when we have to do it manually, but we can do this with bridge. God, I always lose it. Bridge. What I'm going to do is go from these two to the two in the middle over here. And I want to take a look at a preview. So there are 3 divisions that are going to happen in the middle. We can increase or decrease that. I'm going to go to 2, and I'm going to say okay. I'm going to repeat that process on the other side. Don't worry about this recovery file thing. Basically, it's just saying it can't create an auto save because I haven't saved since we've done anything. Hopefully it doesn't crash, but I'm going to go ahead and do this. 2 on this side, and let's go to here. We'll set that to 2 as well. Say okay. All right, so we're starting to build it out. I'm going to repeat that on the top, 2 to here, and it's probably not going to line up very well, but I'm going to try to go to there. And we'll do it one more time on the bottom. So we'll go these 2 to these 2. Now, the main reason for the number of faces or keeping it consistent is that when we start to patch these holes, we want these edges to line up. So if we ended up having 3 divisions here and 2 on one, it wouldn't work out and it would be problematic. All right, so theoretically, we should be able to use fill hole and do a collapse star or a fill star. Yeah, let's do fill star. So this is going to leave, basically it's not going to create any divisions or edges. Notice that it's telling us that it wants to unfreeze this. Not ideal. I'm going to hit cancel. You can see here it's already unfrozen a couple edges. I want to make sure that I refreeze them. And let's go ahead and make sure that those are all frozen. And then I'm going to insert an edge. Now, remember that if we insert an edge with simple insertion mode, this is essentially just a simple extrude. Generally, it doesn't matter, but it's really not liking it. So let's go ahead and just make sure everything's frozen again. Okay. So the idea here is that hopefully having a couple extra edges here will prevent this back edge from moving and trying to be unfrozen. So now with this section here, we're going to go to insert point. I'm going to go from here to there. Simple is going to be okay for us. Right click, because we don't want to preserve the shape that it has. We want it to build the shape a little bit better. So that looks pretty good. Now, if you don't want to go about that approach, you can continue to do things like bridge. So we can go from these two to these two here. Make sure that you've got two divisions. And then what we'd have to do is on the edges, we're going to have to weld vertices. We pick the one that we want to move and the one we want stationary. Same thing down here, it's inside, so we're going to go from there to there. It's giving us a warning about trying to unfreeze this. I'm going to go ahead and say okay. And it looks like it stayed in roughly the right location. So I'm going to go ahead and refreeze those edges. Another thing that you can do to preserve that is if we try to extrude from that edge, and I'll just show you here. This is something I do from time to time as a temporary solution. So we're going to take that edge, we're going to hold down Alt and Control, and we're going to scale it inward or outward and say okay. And so what this is doing is it's creating a crease on the edge. And with that crease on the edge, it kind of keeps everything in line as well. And you can go back in and you can freeze the center edge, and that'll kind of theoretically hold that edge as needed. But sometimes it can be tricky. You'll find that it will remove the frozen edge and you'll have to go back and kind of fix it. But again, for this, I think I'm just going to use the fill hole tool. I'm not going to worry about the unfrozen edges for right now. And I'm going to fill that in, and then we'll repeat it here. All right, so you can see that looks pretty good, like in terms of a transition. Another option that we do have is the face tool, and the face tool will let us snap. The problem with that is that we don't have a division in the middle of it. So we need to go back and do something like insert point, find the red spot there, and then go back and do weld vertices. So these are all solutions to the same problem. Some of them are just a little bit cleaner, but they all should get to the same result. So bridge, then weld vertices, or fill hole, then insert edge, or in that case, face, insert edge to add an edge in the middle, and then go back and weld vertices or merge edge. So you can see it did unfreeze a little bit. I'm going to go back and just continually try to refreeze this edge to make sure that it doesn't move. And there we go. So let's go ahead and bring the bezel back. And so you can see we've got this duct that is behind there. And if we bring the bumper back, it's a little bit of metal here that we need to get through. So I'm going to have to make some adjustments there and maybe pull this shape in a little bit. So edit form, scale it inward, and possibly move it forward a bit. So you can see we've got, if I hide this body temporarily, we've got this metal here. Now, in reality, if you're building a race car or doing something like this and you want, you can hack all this stuff out. But that's not my intention here. I like to keep things OEM if possible. So designing a part that fits in that location, that's kind of important to me. So what this means is I'm going to have to transition this shape a lot quicker. And we're going to do that by scaling this inward. until it fits. So that one fits, and I'll scale this one inward a bit more. And sorry, I got to rotate this around so I can see it. And it looks like that fits okay. Now, obviously, so another thing that we can do now that I've got this selected, I can scale things vertically. I can also reset the pivot point and let's say put it up top. And then if I scale vertically from here, it'll keep this top point fixed and it'll move the bottom point down. So if you get to a situation or an area where you're happy with, let's say, the space up here on the top or on the side, you can use those tools to start creating those shapes and transitions. So this obviously still needs a little bit more work, right? Because it's going to have to connect to the other one that we build, and it's going to have to probably fit to the back of the bezel a little bit better. I mean, it's okay where it is now, but for example, I'm going to hold down Control and potentially just pull these ones further forward. And I think what's going to end up happening, maybe pull this one forward. I think what's going to end up happening is on the other side over here, I'm just going to have to end up cutting away, once this thing is thickened, cutting away where it's going to mount. I think that overlap is okay for now. And potentially pull the top in. So let's go to, I'm going to hold down Control and go to there. Maybe pull that forward a little bit. And maybe a little bit too much. Again, this is kind of a common misconception that we get when we are talking about design. In order to design something, there aren't really any great shortcuts. Sometimes we can have shortcuts, but in a lot of cases, the design process just takes time, right? You're just going to have to spend the time. So I think that given the available shape that we have, this is a decent transition to this rounded section. It still appears to fit within the bumper section, so I can still install it from the front, and it fits into that opening. And then again, what we could do is we could cut a hole there and transition it down to a brake duct. But this video in this series is only going to go as far as this piece that gets inserted in here. All right, so I'm going to say okay. Let's go ahead and save this. And then we can move on to basically doing the same thing on the other piece. And then we're going to have to connect them together, turn them into a solid, and then 3D print them. I'm not sure. I don't think that this is going to fit on the 3D printer as one part. So likely this piece over here will have to attach in the middle, and we'll kind of have to work with it from there. Now, remember, our mounting points are here and here, and what I'm probably going to do after this thing is a solid is I'll deal with that in the design workspace. Right now, I'm not too concerned with it, but just keep in mind, because this thing isn't going to fit on the 3D printer, then likely what we're going to have is just a couple of extra bolt holes. All right, so we've got this piece here, and again, what we're going to do is create a sketch. Just create it on here. And turn the bezel on, and this one's easy because it's just a rectangle, so I can come up maybe right there to right there, and then we can just extrude it. So same thing, last one was 10 millimeters. That's where I'm going to start. I'm going to select it, use move copy, so M. Just going to kind of move it into position. And let's see. Yeah, maybe right there. We'll say okay. And again, it starts out with creased edges. I'm going to begin with edit form and just manually move edges one at a time. Again, box display mode, Alt and 1 is going to be your friend here. We do have a couple of structural ribs up there. Not too concerned with it at the moment, but I am going to have to make adjustments to the shape in a bit to account for that kind of stuff. But right now I'm just trying to get it roughly close to the shape of the bezel. And then we can do some fine adjustments. This is a similar workflow if we're working with surfaces. You start with big, broad surfaces, the main ones that are going to drive the curvature, and then you kind of work backwards from there. All right, so now that we're close, if I go back to smooth display, we can begin pulling these forward a little bit. I want to make sure that I am not stuck in any of these ribs, because again, I don't want to adjust or modify the bezel. What I want to do is make a part that fits. It can use the factory bezel, fit in the factory location without adjustment. A lot of times with car modifications, we see this with Starions, but also other cars. When people do things like make kits to put larger intercoolers, they require you to cut and modify the bumper to make that work. And I think in many cases, I prefer to be able to make adjustments to the design and incorporate. I'm going to go to my box display. Make adjustments to the design and incorporate the factory parts and locations rather than having to make modifications to it. Now, there's no problem. Again, if you are creating a race car, right, then you're going to be cutting things up. You're going to be modifying it. But if you're making parts that are going to fit, whether you're going to sell them or just for your own car, that are going to fit in an OEM location, then we don't want to require people to, cut all this stuff up. All right, so that gets us pretty close. So now what I'm going to do is go in and uncrease those edges. So it'll be this one. And the reason these are creased is because the square, the 2D sketch had sharp corners. And when we extruded, it gave us the option to maintain those creases. So now we're going to go in and we're going to do a bevel. I'm going to bevel that edge, that edge. I'm just going to do them all at the same time because they're essentially all the same. I'm going to increase the crown to make the corner transition a bit tighter. And that gets us pretty close. All right. So next step for me is to start to transition to this. So this is a bit close for my liking. So if I hide the bezel, just want to kind of look at what space I have available. You can see that the mounting points. So this is actually where the bumper mounts to the bumper structure. This is the mounting point for the actual light. So this duct is going to have to transition quickly from here. Now it can go from this section over into that opening there, but up here we don't have any real estate to work with. On this side it's not as bad. We can kind of duct it over quickly, but these are things that, again, we don't want to cut it. We're just going to try to work with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click this edge, and from the front view with Edit Form, I'm going to hold down Alt, which is going to allow us to extrude a new edge. I'm going to scale it down to about there. And so what that did was basically took our shape and just scaled it inwards. I'm also going to go to box display. All right, so as I'm kind of rotating this around, what I'm doing here is I'm looking for how far I need to go in order to avoid this. So I'm going to take these, I'm going to manually move them down because I need to go to about there. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Remember, this is just the connector, and it's probably going to go to about there, and then I'll just bring this one over. So that, if I went straight back from there, that should clear that metal piece. This side is no problem. It looks to be clear of everything. So that could just go straight back. So now I can double click this. And if I hold down Alt and use this arrow, start to pull back, Alt and 3 to go into smooth display mode, kind of see what we're working with here. So again, transition away so that we can wrap around those, the metal structure there and fit. And we are transitioning into this shape. All right, so once again, what I'm gonna come up here and do unfreeze on this edge. Then I'm gonna double click on it, do Alt and Control and scale down. And then I'm going to, let's see, probably from here, insert an edge the other way. And I'm going to repeat this again. Basically, I'm just trying to stack up edges back there. I'm going to delete that one. And then we'll go back and we'll freeze. Now, you're not necessarily required to freeze these edges, but if you're trying to keep this truly cylindrical, your best bet is to do a 2D sketch, extruded surface, or a solid, and use the Modify Match tool. So if you pre-build those before you come into the Forms workspace, or if you're starting with a cylinder that's a true cylinder, then just try to freeze some section of it. All right, so we know that we can, everything here is clear. I'm going to go back to box display. We know everything here is clear, but we still need to transition over to this circle, essentially. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these faces. I'm going to use Edit Form, and I'm just going to begin pulling them over. And again, going back and forth between smooth display and box display will kind of give you an idea of what this is looking like. All right, so it's looking pretty good. From the top, what I want to do is double click this entire edge. I'm going to move my pivot point to the furthest back point, and then I'm going to scale it all to essentially 0, and basically it's going to make it somewhat flat. These edges, actually just this one, I'm going to pull this down a little bit. And this bottom one, I'll pull up a little bit. And then on this side, and grab these. Again, what you can do is you can click the start edge, hold down Control, and double click the end edge, and it'll just sort of fill in the gap between them. And again, Alt and 3. So start edge, Control double click, scale them vertically. All right. So now we're going to have the sort of the same issue with the number of edges. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So it seems like what we're going to have to do is do a subdivision of that. Again, exact, and then try to start blending them together. So this one's a little twisted, meaning that we're still not quite there. So if you want to do this manually, again, you can use face. So let's say, we can build one face there. We can repeat that. And let's say, here to here. And we can repeat that. And when you're using this face tool, you can just continue to build. So kind of work our way around. When we did bridge, we had an extra division in here because we were going from the original shape to the circle. Now that we have scaled this down and built it out in the right direction, we don't necessarily need to do that with the bridge. So this is a case where manually using face might be the best option, especially since we have points to click on everywhere. With these larger faces, it's going to get a bit tricky because they kind of twist, or they going pretty far over. I'm just going to have to build it and see what it looks like afterwards, and then we'll address any problems that we may have created for ourselves. So I'll go over here, and then we'll go to there. Now, it probably goes without saying, if you are watching this or are trying to build something like this, we have not done any optimization for flow, right? There's no flow analysis going on here. We're just trying to transition one shape to another shape. Now, if you are worried about flow, then sticking with something like a true NACA duct or something that has already been proven can be pretty helpful. So I think overall that looks pretty good. Again, it's got some twists, which means that maybe we could have taken this edge to here instead of to there. To redo that would be kind of a pain. Once we have it to this point, you can start deleting edges and allowing it to transition back further. I'm going to hit Control and 4 to hide the edges. So that's a pretty hard transition there, and the reason for that is because of how close these edges are together. So in box display, basically, now it's getting to the point where it's going to unfreeze things. But basically, the tighter two edges are, the harder that transition is going to be. But I think that looks pretty good overall. All right, so if we bring both of these back, they're kind of sitting next to each other. I'll actually completely upside down. Let's rotate that around. So if we bring the bezel back and the bumper, basically we now have an intake path that could go up to either an air filter, air box, or if you built a filter here or a filter somewhere along the way, you could take it directly into a turbo, twin turbo setup, one on each side. That because obviously this is symmetric on the other side of the car, so anything we design here, we could just mirror and it would fit over there. And this one here, again, the path, the intent or the idea here is to preserve the bezel and the original look, and then this would go to a brake ducting system on the front. So that's the idea behind it. Still a lot to do. Let's go ahead and save this. And we have quite a bit of extra work to do to turn these into one single solid body and incorporate the mounting points and kind of build out the rest of this as a finalized part. So because these videos are getting longer and longer, this is definitely a series. I'm going to break them up into multiple videos. So I think this is going to be a great place to stop this episode. At this point, we've used our scan data that we've aligned and processed to begin building out a freeform intake duct system. So one to a brake duct cooler and one that could go to an air box or could go directly to a turbo. The next step is to really continue to refine the design, make sure the flow and the transition is good, make sure that we can connect everything and build out everything into a 3D model that can be printed. Now, remember, it is going to have to be cut up into multiple pieces because I don't believe it's going to fit on a 3D printer. So 200 millimeters, this piece here should fit fine on most newer common 3D printers. This part obviously under 100, so that would be fine. So it seems like probably the best bet is to do a stacked bolting system so that these are two independent pieces that can be 3D printed, and then the bolt holes actually nest together so we can screw them together on the car because there are two bolt holes located right behind these two. So we're going to need to use both of those. And then the large one is just going to have this one. So it's going to be a little bit interesting on how this works. In reality, we could also incorporate the screws that are used to hold the urethane bumper to the bumper metal part, but I don't think that's going to be, again, I want to use the factory locations. So that's going to be my intent for this right now. So again, I think this is a good place to stop this video. In the next video, we'll pick up with some more freeform tips and tools to connect all these things together to build it out as the pieces that we need. And then we'll go ahead and 3D print it, throw it on the car, and do a conclusion. Now, if you have any questions, then leave a comment. If you like this kind of content, consider subscribing to the channel. And remember that we are affiliates for lots of different stuff. So in this series so far, we've used the Creality Raptor Pro. We are an affiliate for Creality. We'll put that information in the description of the videos. Also an affiliate for Quick Surface. Lead 10 is a discount code that you can use for that. So if you have any need for any of those pieces and you want to help out the channel and get a little bit of a discount in many cases, then make sure you check out the information in the description. So with that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.